For 7 years, Alina thought she was marrying the perfect man: loyal, family oriented, reliable, until one message, one screenshot, and one city proved that every single one of those things was a lie. Alina always thought the monthly trips were proof of his character. Family first, Marcus would say, kissing her forehead while he rolled his suitcase to the door. I'm not one of those guys who forgets where he came from. Alina loved that line, the way you love a familiar song, because it made her feel safe, because it made the future feel sturdy. 7 years of sturdy. 7 years of building a life so carefully you could almost mistake it for destiny. Every month, like clockwork, Marcus flew to his parents' state. Every month, Alina waved goodbye, sent heart emojis, asked how his mom was feeling, and reminded him to eat something other than gas station snacks. Every month, Marcus sent photos: him and his father at a diner, him in front of the same "Welcome to Greenville" sign, him with his mother on her couch, smiling like the son everyone wanted to claim. Alina saved those photos. She used them like evidence when her friends teased her about how long Marcus took to propose. He's just thoughtful, Alina would say. He wants to do it right. The truth was, Alina had met Marcus's parents more than once. Not constantly. Greenville was far, and her job didn't bend easily, but enough to know them. Enough to have hugged Diane and sat at Joel's table and listened to them tease Marcus about his appetite like they'd been doing his whole life. They knew her name. They had her number. Diane had commented heart emojis under Alina's engagement post within 10 minutes of it going up. They weren't strangers. They were his parents. And Alina had never once felt unwelcome. If anything, the opposite. Diane's warmth could feel like a blanket, soft, heavy, almost smothering. Joel was quieter, the kind of man who didn't waste words, but noticed everything. When he looked at Alina, it always felt like being assessed and approved. You're good for him, Diane had once said, squeezing Alina's hands. He needs a woman who keeps him steady. Alina had smiled, flattered, not realizing how clinical that sounded. And he did propose. Last month, on a Saturday morning that smelled like cinnamon and optimism. Marcus proposed in their kitchen while she was barefoot and wearing one of his old college shirts. He slid a ring onto her finger like he'd been practicing the motion in secret for years. Alina cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Marcus cried too, shaky, convincing tears. Later, when she posted the engagement photo, her hand, the ring, their coffee cups in the background, she watched the likes flood in and felt like the universe had finally clicked into place. 7 years. She deserved this. She had earned this. The wedding planning started the next day because Alina was a person who didn't like floating. She liked lists. She liked options narrowed down to decisions. She liked binder tabs and color-coded calendars and Pinterest boards that made life look like a clean hallway leading to a bright door. She created a shared wedding spreadsheet. She booked a venue tour. She scheduled a dress appointment. Marcus went back to his monthly trip, 2 weeks after the proposal, hugging her at the airport, kissing her like he'd missed her, promising to FaceTime every night. Alina watched him walk through security and texted, "Love you. Tell your mom I said hi." Marcus replied, "Always." She went home and worked on the guest list, smiling to herself, feeling grown. That night, while she was scrolling through bridesmaid dress options, her phone buzzed with a message from someone she hadn't heard from in months. Sasha. Alina blinked at the name. Sasha was a mutual friend, closer to Marcus than to Alina. The kind of woman who moved through friend groups like a breeze, in and out, always present at big moments, always on the edges of the drama. Sasha's laugh was sharp. Sasha's eyeliner was always perfect. Sasha had a habit of delivering truths like she was doing you a favor. The messages were short. "Hey, are you alone? Alina frowned. Her eyes flicked to the clock. 10:14 p.m. She typed back, "Yeah, Marcus is visiting his parents. What's up?" There was a pause. Three dots, then nothing. Then three dots again. Then Sasha sent a screenshot. Alina's stomach dropped before her brain had time to read. The screenshot was a Tinder profile. A man's photo, Marcus, smiling in a bar, wearing the same navy button-down Alina had bought him for his birthday. The bio read, "New to the city, here for a good time, not looking for anything serious." The location, Greenville. Alina's mouth went dry. Before she could process, another screenshot arrived. A Hinge profile. Marcus again. Different photo. A caption. "I'm weirdly attracted to women who like to travel." Then another. A Bumble profile. His job title listed as something slightly better than his actual job, like he was polishing himself for strangers. Then Sasha sent another message. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. A girl I know matched with him in Greenville. She sent me his profile because she recognized him from your engagement post." Alina stared at her phone until the words turned into shapes. Matched. Greenville. Her fingers were numb. She typed, "Is this real? Could it be fake?" Sasha replied immediately, like she'd been waiting. "It's real. She's got messages, too." Something in Alina's chest went hollow. She put her phone down on the couch beside her like it was dangerous. She pressed her palms to her eyes and tried to breathe. This couldn't be Marcus. Not Marcus, who massaged her shoulders when she got migraines. Not Marcus, who held her hand at funerals and whispered jokes in her ear to keep her from crying. Not Marcus, who proposed in their kitchen with tears in his eyes. She picked the phone back up. Her thumb hovered over the screen. "Send me everything," she typed. Sasha didn't hesitate. A screen recording arrived. Messages between Marcus and the girl. Marcus, "You free tonight?" Girl, "Maybe. Where are you staying?" Marcus, "Downtown. Come over. I'll pour you something, and you can tell me what trouble you get into." Alina felt her skin go cold. More messages. Marcus, "You look better in person." Girl, "You say that to all the girls?" Marcus, "Only the ones I actually want to see again." And then a photo. A selfie of Marcus in a hotel mirror, shirt half buttoned, smirking like he didn't have a life waiting for him in another state. Alina's throat made a sound like a choke. She stood up, pacing, as if movement could shake the truth loose. 7 years. 7 years, and he'd been living a second life, tucked neatly inside a monthly trip? She tried to remember every time she'd kissed him goodbye at the airport. Every time she'd felt proud of him for being family first. Every time she'd teased him about being a mama's boy. Her mind pulled up memories like receipts. Marcus packing. Marcus checking his flights. Marcus texting, "Made it." Marcus sending photos from his parents' house. Were those photos real? Had he been at his parents' house at all? She grabbed her laptop with shaking hands and opened the shared wedding spreadsheet. Marcus's name sat next to hers at the top like an insult. She stared at the budget line. Florals, catering, photographer. She thought about how she'd already put down deposits. Then something in her brain snapped into a different mode. Not hysteria, not collapse, a strange calm. Because Alina had always been good at one thing, planning. She typed into Sasha's chat, "I need the girl's name." Sasha replied, "Her name is Riley. I can ask if she'll talk to you." Alina said, "Ask." While she waited, she opened Marcus's email on their shared computer, not because she was proud of it, but because she and Marcus shared everything. Their Netflix, their Amazon, their grocery lists. She knew his passwords because he never cared enough to hide them. It wasn't distrust before. It was convenience. Now it was a key. His inbox loaded. Her heart pounded, but her fingers didn't shake anymore. She searched Greenville, flights, hotels, receipt confirmations. A pattern appeared so clean it almost looked like work. Every month, the same general dates, 3 to 5 days, different hotels, and sometimes, her stomach flipped, two hotels in one trip. She searched Tinder, nothing. She searched Hinge, nothing. He was careful there. So she searched for what careless people always leave behind: verification code. A dozen emails popped up: Tinder verification code, Bumble verification code, Hinge login alerts, all sent to Marcus's email on those monthly trip dates. Alina stared at the list until her eyes burned. Then she started saving everything: screenshots, PDFs, forwarded receipts. She created a folder on her desktop labeled Travel, then another, Apps, then another, Hotels. She didn't know why she was organizing proof like a project. She only knew she needed to, because her emotions were too big to hold, and facts were small enough to stack. Her phone buzzed. Sasha. Riley said she'll talk. Here's her number. She's nervous, but she feels bad. Alina copied the number with a steadiness that shocked her. Then she called. Riley answered on the second ring. Hello? Alina swallowed. Riley, she said, voice calm. My name is Alina. I'm engaged to Marcus. Silence. Then a soft, horrified inhale. Oh my God, Riley whispered. Sasha told me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, Alina said, surprising herself. I just need to understand. Riley's voice trembled. He told me he was single. He said he traveled for work. He he said he was thinking about moving here permanently. Alina closed her eyes. How long have you been seeing him? Riley hesitated. Since March. He comes once a month, sometimes twice. He always stays in hotels. He never takes me to his place. I thought it was normal, like he was private. March. Alina's breath caught. March was the month Marcus's father had a scare. The month Marcus had cried and said, I don't know what I'd do if I lost him. Riley continued, words spilling now. He introduced me to his friends here. Like, not family, but friends. He took me to this bar where everyone knows him. He said he used to live here in college. He's not a stranger there. Alina's mind started building a map. What bar? She asked. Riley named it. Alina wrote it down. Riley, Alina said quietly, did he ever talk about his parents? Did you ever go to their house? Riley let out a small, bitter laugh. He said they were traditional and would freak out if he brought a girl around too soon. He said he didn't want to complicate things. Alina's lips pressed together. Because Marcus's parents weren't traditional. They were loud and warm and the kind of people who hugged you too long. They already knew about her. They had already hugged her. They had smiled at her engagement ring and asked about venues and guest counts like this wedding was their project too. So if Marcus was telling Riley his parents were traditional, it wasn't to protect Riley. It was to control Riley, to keep her just far enough from the truth, unless the truth didn't scare his parents at all. Alina felt her stomach twist. Do you have more proof? Alina asked gently. More messages, photos, anything you're willing to share. I'm not trying to drag you into drama. I just need to see the truth clearly. Riley was quiet, then said, Yes, I'll send everything. And Alina, I'm sorry. I really am. Alina's voice softened just a fraction. Thank you. When she hung up, she sat on the couch and stared at the wall. For a few minutes, she let herself feel the weight of it. Not just the betrayal, the theft of time. 7 years. All the compromises she'd made, the way she'd shrunk herself to fit into their relationship, the jobs she turned down because Marcus's career was taking off, the friendships she'd neglected because she was building a future with him. He hadn't just cheated, he'd used her as a base camp while he explored every other option. And then, like a punch arriving late, Alina realized something else. Marcus hadn't just been cheating with Riley, he'd been on dating apps, which meant there were others, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. The idea made her nauseous. She stood up, walked to the bathroom, and threw up. Then she rinsed her mouth, washed her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red, her cheeks were wet, but her expression wasn't broken. It was focused. She whispered to her own reflection, okay. Because Alina had a choice. She could confront him now while he was in Greenville, while she was shaking and raw. She could scream and cry and ask why. He would lie. He would minimize. He would apologize. He would blame stress, fear, commitment issues, anything that made him sound like a tragic hero instead of a greedy man. He would make her the villain if she got angry. And if she ended it now, he'd walk away wounded but intact. He'd tell people she was dramatic, that she overreacted, that it wasn't serious. And the world would comfort him because people comfort men who look sad. Alina didn't want him comforted. She wanted him understood. She wanted him seen. And she wanted the revenge to land long after everyone thought the drama was over. So she did the most dangerous thing she could do. She waited. Marcus came home on Sunday evening with souvenirs and a smile. He walked through the door like a man returning to safety. Baby, he called, I'm home. Alina stood in the kitchen, stirring pasta sauce she didn't plan to eat. Marcus kissed her cheek, inhaling like he missed her. God, I miss you. This weekend it was a lot. How are your parents? Alina asked, voice steady. Marcus's face flickered, just for a second. Good. Mom's, she worries. That's fine. Alina nodded. I'm glad. Marcus dropped his suitcase in the hallway and wrapped his arms around her waist. I kept thinking about the wedding stuff. We need to book the DJ. Alina kept stirring. We will. Marcus leaned his chin on her shoulder. You're quiet. I'm tired, Alina said. He kissed her neck. Come to bed early tonight. Alina forced a soft hum of agreement. Marcus didn't know the way her body stayed rigid in his arms. He didn't notice because he had never been paying attention to her in the way she'd thought. He'd been paying attention to what she provided: stability, admiration, a clean home base. That night, Marcus fell asleep quickly, his arms slung over her like ownership. Alina lay awake at night in the dark, staring at the ceiling. She listened to his breathing, and she planned. Over the next 3 months, Alina became the perfect fiancé. She smiled in public. She posted wedding updates like nothing was wrong. She went to tastings and laughed at Marcus's jokes. She let him talk about their future, about kids, about a house. She acted so normal that even her own mother didn't suspect. Inside, she was building a second life too. Not romance, a strategy. She met with the venue and quietly adjusted contracts into her name where possible. She called the photographer and asked about refund policies. She moved her savings into a private account Marcus couldn't access. She went to her doctor and got a full panel done, STI testing included, without telling Marcus, then cried in her car afterward, not because she had a diagnosis, but because she'd been forced to consider one. She started going to a gym class Marcus hated, hot yoga, because it gave her a reason to be alone without suspicion. And in those quiet hours, she talked to Riley. Riley, who was angry now, not just guilty. Riley sent screenshots, voice notes, pictures of Marcus in hotel rooms, receipts of dinners he'd paid for, a selfie of them at the bar where everyone knew him. And then Riley sent one thing that made Alina's blood run cold: a photo. Marcus, standing in front of a suburban house, arms around an older couple, his parents. Riley's caption, he told them I was his girlfriend. Alina stared at the photo until her vision blurred. So his parents knew. Not vaguely, not hypothetically. They knew exactly who Alina was. They had met her. They had watched her plan a wedding. They had smiled at her ring. And they had still opened their door to another woman and let Marcus stand there like a man simply moving forward. Alina called Riley immediately. What did he say about me? Alina asked quietly. Riley hesitated. He didn't say much, just that things were complicated, that the engagement wasn't what it looked like. Alina closed her eyes. And they accepted that? Yes, Riley said, too easily. His mom hugged me. His dad joked with Marcus like everything was normal. Riley's voice wavered. It felt like they already knew how to make space for someone else. Like you weren't erased, just filed away. Alina swallowed. Filed away. Not lost, not defended, categorized. That night, Alina opened a new folder. Parents. She began to research. Marcus's father worked for a local church charity. Marcus's mother ran a small boutique. They were community people, beloved, respected. They cared about appearance. They cared about being admired. They cared about their son looking successful. Alina had seen it before, but never named it. The way Diane curated photos like a portfolio. The way Joel's handshake lasted a second too long. The way they talked about the wedding like it belonged to them. If they knew and supported it, they were complicit. And Alina needed to understand exactly what game she was in. So she did what she did best. She gathered information. She didn't contact them. Not yet. She looked at their public posts, their church events, their tagged photos. And then, one evening, she found something that made her mouth go dry. A Facebook album from Diane titled Family. There were pictures of Marcus. There were photos of Riley. And there were photos of another woman. A blonde woman with bright eyes and a smile like a knife. The caption wasn't, oops. It wasn't accidental. It was familiar. It read, Marcus is home again. Always nice when he has company. Heart emoji. The date on the post? 2 years ago. Alina's heart pounded. 2 years. Which further proved that Riley wasn't the only one. Which also meant Marcus had been doing this far longer. 7 years with Alina. At least 2 years with someone else welcomed into his parents' house like a seasonal tradition. Months with Riley. And dating apps on top of that. A man who collected women like he collected flight miles. Alina closed her laptop slowly. She wasn't shaking anymore. She was steady. Because a pattern this big wasn't an accident. It was a lifestyle. And lifestyles have weak points. That's what Alina told herself when she started building hers. In late spring, 3 months before the wedding, Marcus announced something at dinner like it was romantic. I want to do our engagement party in Greenville, he said, eyes bright. With my family, my friends. It'll be perfect. Like merging our worlds. Alina's fork paused mid-air. Her stomach turned, but her face didn't change. That sounds nice, she said carefully. Marcus smiled, pleased. Right? My mom would love to host. It's like the symbolic beginning before the wedding. Alina forced a smile. Inside, she thought, so you want me in the lion's den? She nodded. Okay. Marcus didn't see the danger in her agreement. He only saw compliance. He booked flights. He told his mother. He posted about it. Can't wait to celebrate with family, like he was a man with one life. Alina started packing something else. Not clothes, receipts. She created a private Google Drive. She uploaded everything. The screenshots of the dating profiles, the verification emails, hotel receipts, Riley's messages, photos of Marcus with Riley, the Facebook posts with the blonde woman. She organized it like evidence because it was. Then she made copies. 2 USB drives. One for her, one for later. She booked her own hotel room in Greenville, claiming she wanted space to get ready for the party. Marcus laughed and called her extra, but he didn't argue. Alina smiled and let him think it was about makeup. She also did something that felt almost tender. She ordered custom engagement party favors, small boxes with little candles inside. Each candle had a label: Homecoming, a celebration of love. Marcus's mother cried when she saw the mock up. Oh, honey, she said on the phone to Alina, you're everything. Marcus is so lucky. Alina's voice caught. She whispered, Thank you. Then she hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. Because part of her still wanted this to be a mistake. Part of her still wanted Marcus to be redeemable. But she had learned something in the past few months. Wanting didn't change reality. Planning did. The engagement party was on a Saturday evening at Marcus's parents' house. A big backyard strung with lights, a rented tent, tables dressed in white and gold, a cake taller than necessary, a local DJ playing soft, safe music. It looked like every wholesome family celebration you'd see on someone's timeline. Marcus walked around like a mayor, shaking hands, hugging cousins, laughing with old friends. Alina played her role perfectly. She smiled. She hugged. She said, So nice to meet you, until her face hurt. Marcus's mother, Diane, kept touching Alina's arm with affection. Look at you, Diane said, eyes shining as she smoothed an invisible wrinkle from Alina's dress. You're beautiful. This is how it's supposed to look. Alina's smile held. Yes. Diane sighed happily. I always knew Marcus would marry someone special. Alina looked at Diane carefully. Was Diane lying? Or was Diane the kind of woman who could hold two truths at once? Alina is the fiancé, and Marcus is Marcus, and simply refused to let the second truth disturb her? It was hard to tell. Diane's face was open, sincere, the face of a woman who believed in the stories she chose to live inside. Alina glanced at Marcus's father, Joel, who stood near the grill talking to men from church. Joel's eyes slid over Alina like she was inventory, assessing, approving. A flash of anger rose. They hosted Riley here, Alina thought. They hugged her, they joked, and they still smiled at Alina like nothing was wrong. Unless they didn't care. Unless Marcus had been trained by his own house that consequences were negotiable as long as you kept things pretty. The DJ lowered the music. Marcus clinked a glass. Everyone, he shouted. May I have your attention? The crowd turned. Phones rose. Marcus grinned and pulled Alina close. I just want to thank everyone for being here, Marcus said. This means everything to me. Alina means everything to me, and I'm so excited for the life we're building. The crowd cheered. Alina smiled sweetly, her heart beating slow and deliberate. Marcus continued, My mom says I have to say something romantic. So, Alina, baby. He leaned in, theatrically, and kissed her cheek. More cheers. Then, he said, and to celebrate, we have a little slideshow. A projector screen flickered to life on the side of the tent. Photos appeared. Marcus as a kid, Marcus at graduation, Marcus with his parents, Marcus and Alina on trips. The crowd awed at the engagement photo, the ring, their smiles. Marcus looked proud. Alina looked calm. When the slideshow ended, Marcus raised his glass. To Alina, he said, for loving me, for believing in me, for always being there. The crowd echoed, To Alina. Alina lifted her glass. She took a sip. Then she stepped forward. Marcus blinked. Babe, you want to say something? Alina looked out at the crowd. The faces were warm, expectant, happy. This wasn't a wedding. This wasn't a dramatic confrontation in a ballroom. This was a backyard full of people who believed they were watching a love story. And that was exactly why Alina chose it. Because you don't destroy someone's mask in a place where everyone expects ugliness. You destroy it in a place where everyone expects sweetness. Alina smiled. Hi, everyone, she said, voice clear. Thank you for being here. Thank you for celebrating with us. More smiles. Diane dabbed at her eyes. Alina continued. Marcus is right. This means a lot. She turned slightly and looked at Marcus, who grinned like he'd won. Alina's gaze lingered a second too long. Then she looked back at the crowd. I actually brought a little gift, she said. A murmur of delight moved through the guests. Not for Marcus, Alina added gently. For all of you. People laughed. Alina held up her phone and nodded to a teenage cousin near the projector. Could you play the file I sent you? It's labeled Homecoming. The cousin nodded eagerly, excited to help. Marcus's grin widened. Aw, babe. The projector screen went black, then lit up. The first slide was a simple title card. Homecoming, a celebration of love. Soft music played, romantic, safe. People smiled. Then the next slide appeared. A Tinder profile. Marcus's face, his bio, his location, Greenville. The crowd went quiet in a way that felt like a cliff edge. Marcus's body stiffened beside Alina. The next slide, Hinge profile. Next, Bumble. The soft music kept playing, unbearably cheerful. A woman in the crowd laughed once, nervously, then stopped. Alina's voice stayed calm. For 7 years, Marcus told me he came here every month to visit his parents. The slideshow continued. Verification emails with dates, hotel receipts, message screenshots. Marcus, come over. I'll pour you something. The crowd shifted, confused. Some faces turned angry. Some faces turned embarrassed, like they'd been tricked into watching something they shouldn't. Diane's mouth fell open. Joel's face hardened. Marcus grabbed Alina's wrist. Alina, he hissed under his breath. What the hell is this? Alina didn't look at him. She looked at Diane. Mrs. Reynolds, Alina said gently, I'm sorry to do this here. Diane's voice shook. Alina, what is happening? Alina kept her voice tender. I wanted to believe you didn't know. I wanted to believe this house was just home. And then Alina nodded again. The next slide appeared. A photo of Marcus in front of the same house, arms around Diane and Joel, and next to him, Riley. A sharp gasp cut through the crowd. Diane made a sound like pain, but it wasn't surprise. It was exposure. Riley wasn't there, but her face was on the screen, undeniable. Alina swallowed and said the words that mattered. This is Riley, she said. Marcus told her he was single, and he brought her here. Diane's eyes darted to Marcus, like she was trying to decide which version of her son to defend. Joel's jaw clenched. Marcus's hand tightened on Alina's wrist. Turn it off, he snapped. Alina finally turned to him, still smiling softly. No, she said. The next slide appeared. Diane's Facebook post, 2 years ago, with the blonde woman. The caption, Marcus is home again. Always nice when he has company. Heart emoji. Diane went very still. Joel's eyes narrowed, fury simmering underneath his calm. Diane whispered, Alina. Alina offered a small, sad smile. How many? Marcus's voice rose. This is insane. This is not what it looks like. Alina faced the crowd again. Actually, she said, it's exactly what it looks like. The slideshow ended on one final slide, a simple sentence. I'm not marrying him. Silence. Then chaos. People started talking at once. Questions, whispers, anger. Diane stumbled toward Marcus, hand shaking. Marcus, she whispered, voice cracking, tell me you didn't ruin your life. Joel moved like a storm, stepping between Marcus and Alina. Let go of her, he growled. Marcus released Alina's wrist automatically, his face flashing fear. Alina stepped back, rubbing her wrist, and breathed. Her heart was pounding now, but her voice stayed calm. She reached into her purse and pulled out the second USB drive. She held it out to Diane. This has everything, Alina said softly, for when you want to pretend you don't remember what you saw. Diane stared at it like it was poison. Alina looked at Joel. And I'm sorry, Alina added, voice still gentle, if you truly didn't know. But if you did, then I'm not sorry at all. Joel's jaw set, but he didn't deny it. That answer told Alina everything. Marcus stepped forward, eyes wild. Alina, please, please don't do this. Not like this. We could talk. Alina tilted her head. Talk like you talked to Riley? Or to the other women? Or the ones you're still swiping on? Marcus flinched. Alina's gaze swept the crowd, faces full of shock, pity, anger, phones recording, people hungry for the story. She could feel the internet forming already. But this time, she wasn't the unsuspecting victim caught in a viral moment. This time, she directed the moment. She leaned into the microphone again. One more thing, she said. The crowd quieted, drawn in despite themselves. Alina smiled, soft, almost sad. I didn't do this because I wanted to embarrass Marcus, she said. I did this because I wanted the truth to be in the one place he always felt safe telling lies. Her eyes moved to Marcus. And I want to be clear, she added, voice cool now. The drama is over. She stepped back, handed the mic to the stunned DJ, and walked away from the tent. No screaming, no tears, just an exit. But unlike the first story people would have expected from a woman betrayed, Alina didn't go home to collapse. She went to her hotel. She took a shower. She put on pajamas. And then she opened her laptop and sent one email to her wedding planner. Subject, cancel. She attached the contracts and the refund policies she'd already researched. She had prepared for this. She slept, surprisingly deep. For 2 weeks, Greenville buzzed. People talked about the engagement party like it was folklore. Someone had recorded the slideshow. Clips spread in private Facebook groups, then leaked to wider social media with captions like, She ate and left no crumbs. Imagine exposing him in front of his mom. He deserved worse. But Alina didn't post. She didn't clap back. She didn't respond to strangers calling her queen or psycho or saying the whole thing was staged. She stayed quiet because the point wasn't to be famous. It was to be free. Marcus called, texted, emailed, sent flowers, sent apologies, sent long messages about therapy and finding himself and making mistakes. Alina ignored all of it. Then, 3 weeks later, when the excitement had started to fade, when people had moved on to the next scandal, Marcus did something predictable. He tried to rewrite the story. He posted a long Instagram caption with a black and white photo of himself looking sad. Sometimes love teaches you hard lessons. I'm grateful for the years we shared. I'm taking time to heal and grow. Please respect our privacy. The comments flooded with sympathy. Alina saw it because Sasha sent it. Sasha, he's trying to play the victim. I'm sorry. Alina stared at the post for a long time. Then she did nothing because she wasn't finished. Not even close. The revenge that hits hardest doesn't arrive when everyone's watching. It arrives when everyone's bored. Alina waited 2 months, long enough for the engagement party video to stop trending, long enough for Marcus to start telling people he was doing better, long enough for Diane to start posting church quotes about forgiveness again, long enough for Joel to return to his charity board meetings without shame following him like a shadow. Then Alina made one move. She sent the USB drive, duplicated, organized, labeled, to a single person, not a blogger, not a gossip account, not even Riley. She sent it to Marcus's employer's compliance department, and she did it anonymously because Alina had learned a lot while planning the wedding. She'd learned that Marcus's job, sales for a regional medical supply company, required ethics training, trust, and clean documentation. She learned that his company cared deeply about reputation. She'd learned something else too, from receipts, from messages, from the way Marcus spoke when he thought no one was listening. Marcus often paid for hotels and dinners using his company card. He had called it travel reimbursement. He had shrugged and said, everyone does it. Alina had saved those statements. She attached them. She didn't write an angry paragraph. She wrote a calm, professional note. This file contains evidence of repeated misuse of company funds tied to personal trips. Please review timestamps and receipts. That was all. Then she went back to her life. She started a new routine. She repainted her bedroom. She took a pottery class. She let herself laugh with friends again without feeling like laughter was betrayal. Marcus didn't know what was coming, and that was the point. 2 months later, Sasha called Alina at midnight. Her voice was breathless. Girl. Alina sat up in bed, heart steady. What? Sasha whispered, Marcus got fired. Alina closed her eyes, not because she was shocked, but because she was done. Sasha continued, and listen, listen, it's worse. Apparently, they're investigating him for fraud, like actual fraud. He used company money on those trips. There's talk of charges. Alina let out a slow breath. Sasha said, Did you do something? Alina's voice was soft. I did what I had to. Sasha was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, Damn. Alina hung up and stared at the ceiling. This was the part people didn't see. The quiet part. The part where the drama was supposedly over. The part where Alina's revenge landed like a weight on Marcus's chest when no one else was filming him. Marcus called the next day. Alina didn't answer. He texted, Did you do this? Alina didn't respond. He texted again. Please, please, I'm ruined. Alina stared at the word ruined. She thought about her own ruined moment, the way her future had shattered in her hands, the way she'd vomited in the bathroom, the way she'd had to consider STIs because of his choices, the way she'd been turned into a punchline by his double life. She typed back one sentence. Now you know what it feels like to come home and realize your life was never yours. Then she blocked him. The final twist didn't come with a viral clip. It came in a letter. A month later, Alina received an envelope with Diane's handwriting. Alina stared at it for a long time before opening. Inside was a single page. Alina, I don't know if you will read this. I don't know if I deserve you to. I need you to know something. I did know. Alina's breath caught. Diane's words continued, shaky but clear. I knew Marcus wasn't faithful. I knew because I saw the pattern and I chose not to name it. I told myself it wasn't my place. I told myself he would grow up once he was married. I told myself warning you would only cause a scandal. That wasn't neutrality. That was cowardice. When he brought women here, I treated them like guests because that was easier than treating my son like a problem. I am ashamed to admit that sometimes I even felt relieved because as long as you were still the fiancé, as long as you were the one he was building with, I could pretend everything would eventually turn out nice. And I cared about nice. I cared about how it looked at church. I cared about what people said. I cared about my son's name more than I cared about your heart. Alina's hands tightened on the paper. Diane wrote, The night you showed that slideshow, I hated you for a minute. Not because you were wrong, but because you did it in front of everyone. You did what I refused to do. You made the truth public. But then Joel found something. Alina's eyes narrowed. Diane continued. He found the binder. Alina's stomach dropped. In Marcus's old room, under the bed, a binder with tabs, names, photos, notes, trips, women. Alina's mouth went dry. Diane's handwriting trembled. Alina, he kept records, like you were projects, like you were options. And there was a tab with your name. Alina's chest ached painfully. Diane wrote, in that tab were photos of you, screenshots of your posts, notes about what you liked, what you wanted, what made you easy. Alina's vision blurred. Then Diane's final paragraph. There was also a note I couldn't stop thinking about. Marcus wrote, Alina is the one I can build with. Greenville is where I can play. Alina's throat made a small sound, half laugh, half sob. Diane ended the letter. I'm ashamed. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth so you can stop wondering what you did wrong. You did nothing wrong. You were real. He wasn't. Diane. Alina stared at the letter until the words stopped shaking in her hands. And then, very slowly, she laughed. Not because it was funny, because the last piece finally clicked into place. The twist wasn't just that Marcus had cheated. It was that Marcus had chosen Alina specifically because she was stable enough to build on, because she was the foundation he could exploit. He hadn't accidentally betrayed her. He had designed her role. And the moment Alina understood that, something inside her finally unlocked. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. She folded the letter carefully and placed it into her evidence folder. Not because she needed it for revenge now, but because it was proof of what she'd survived. Then she walked to her window and looked out at the street below. The world kept moving. Cars passed. People lived. The sky didn't collapse because Marcus had been a liar. Alina pressed her hand to her heart and felt a steady heartbeat. 7 years had been stolen from her, but not her life. Not anymore. Do you think what she did was justified? Did she take it too far? Or is just walking away the real win? Let me know what you would have done.